Welcome to One Quick Question with Infomedia, your source for answers to your questions about websites, digital marketing, and more. I'm your host, Michael Green. I'm here with Carrie Rollwagon, who is typically the host for this podcast. And Carrie, what do you do here at Infomedia?
Well, I manage people, I guess, and processes. I don't know how to answer this question, really. It's a little bit of director of operations with a little bit of, future planning thrown in.
It's pretty big, I guess, in scope.
Yeah, sure.
Well, here's your
Put out fires. Is that a good answer?
I mean, yes. Firefighter is a succinct way to sum it up. So our question for today is, how do you effectively manage multiple teams?
Do you think I do it effectively?
I did not know it was going to be that kind of co-hosting. I would. I can actually.
Okay.
Let me take this for you. No, yeah, of course I do. But to me, it's it's a magician doing his magic trick. So or doing their magic trick. So what is the magic behind managing multiple teams? I just see it get done, and I don't know how it happens. So could you elaborate?
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate that people think it's going well, so that's awesome. I generally don't. I mean, I think it's going well, but it's hard to evaluate anyway, so really, let me get into the question. I manage multiple teams by bumbling my way through everything else, so everyone else has to come and save me like I am on this question.
I mean, empowering other people to feel like they're in positions of leadership is actually, I think, a great technique, which I don't know if that's a happy accident or if that's all according to plan.
It's not an accident. I mean, I actually think that is actually the biggest thing. A lot of what I've done over the past few years at Infomedia is try to make different teams that I think make sense, like even on an org chart level, which we didn't have that really before. We did have some teams, but we had a ton of overlap, and a lot of people didn't know even who they reported to necessarily, which sounds like it's kind of nice and, everybody's happy and friendly and whatever, but it really just meant it was really confusing. And then we even had some situations where it was nobody knew how to create change. So then it kind of, I think, even led to infighting a little bit, maybe gossiping, because it's people didn't have an actual avenue of this is how I change something. So that is one thing that I thought was really important to change. So we've kind of made 4 departments really, maybe 5 now actually. Anyway, and each of those has their own manager. And so I kind of manage the managers mostly. And that's been really cool. I think we really figured out we absolutely needed this system during the beginning of COVID, basically. I wanted to do that anyway, and we actually finished our first kind of leadership training the week before March 13th, which is when we all went home. So good timing. But making those departments more obvious became even more important. So I do think actually what we were kind of joking about is true. It's empowering other people. One thing that I read that has really influenced a lot of what I try to do as a manager is saying when you have somebody who's disengaged and just seems like they don't care, they probably don't have enough responsibility, which seemed weird to me. It seemed totally opposite.
It almost seems counterintuitive, right?
Yeah. And so I realized I was doing some things when I was in meetings and I felt like other people, I'm almost asking them to disengage. Why would you, if you're a manager, which you are actually, but if I'm going to sit in every meeting, that's not really encouraging you to lead, That's just telling you, I don't really trust you, and I'm here because I don't.
Do you have any examples of any recent events where you haven't been in a leadership position where you've...
have I been micromanaging?
Yeah. Have you found? Does that ever?
I mean, it definitely.
How do you turn it off?
happens.
Right? How if you as a leader, if you want to create other sub leaders, how do you manage when do you know, like, oh, I need to actually just let them sort of lead versus they need nudging here? How do you, what's the balancing act?
I think it's trial and error. Because I don't do that. I definitely don't do it right. I mean, there are certainly times that I can tell I'm overstepping, or I realize later, like, I'm making them feel like they're not doing this well.
That didn't need to be scheduled at this particular time or something.
Yeah. Oh, right. That one meeting. I told Michael to schedule a meeting at actually the wrong time.
Yes.
And
This was a meeting that I was, in theory,
in charge of.
Yeah.
You're doing a great job. You're a great leader.
Well, the leader's only as good as their followers, right?
No, but I mean, that's a good example, because I think that is a lot of it is just knowing you're going to make a lot of mistakes.
Mhm.
And it is kind of, maybe somebody's handling something really well for a couple of weeks. And then there's like, sometimes you do have to step in. It's usually better, I think, if it's the last resort. If it's like, okay, maybe we have coffee and we talk about it. Like, you seem to be struggling. Like, seems to be a struggle. What can we do here? That kind of thing. I certainly don't do that perfectly, but that is the goal, is to have other people empowered to like run their own departments, and also for them to empower like the people who are working with them to also make decisions. And one of the other things that has like helped me a lot is, to tell people why you're doing things whenever possible.
100%, right? Context
Yeah.
is always so important in any of those situations. If
Yeah.
you don't understand why you're doing something, it can be really frustrating because
Mhm.
you just feel like you're sort of mucking through it and like, why is this the process? Like,
Right.
you know.
Well, and I think also for training managers, telling them I'm making this decision and this is why I'm doing it is actually really helpful, because that helps them to manage in a way that, like, I guess a bad way to say it is that I want them to manage, but a good way is to say, like, that works with the organization as a whole, like where we're going. So after, it takes a while, but after a year, a few months, maybe longer, of saying like, if there's a new manager, it is more like, come to me and then, okay, here's what maybe we could do. Sometimes it's, what do you think we should do? Okay, that sounds good, but because of historical things, or because I know this other thing is going on in another department,
Yeah.
we're not going to. But actually explaining that and like how I'm coming to the decision is super helpful for them to learn how they need to manage at Infomedia. So I don't always have to make those calls.
I think that's like, I think there's so much like truth to that at any level of management. Providing context for people that you're giving instructions to is like super important and really does empower them to, I think, proceed, because they understand the confines of what they're trying to do and what they're trying to get done.
Yeah. And we have a wonderful team, I think. Like, that was helpful. I started with a team of really good people who want to move forward together. So that was good.
When you're interacting with people that maybe aren't in a position of leadership, are there any telltale signs of like, you know what, I think, like, what do you see in a person that makes you think I should move them to a position? Because sometimes, if you're good at your job, you get moved to leadership or a position of management. But just being good at your job doesn't necessarily mean you're good at management, right? Because management it's a people sort of skill. So what is it about a specific person doing their job well that you would see like that being a leader shines through or something? Through those actions, like, what is there anything that you can identify? You're like, oh, this guy or this person.
Yeah, I mean, different things. I would say one of the easiest things at Infomedia is that they see things outside of exactly what they're working on, so their department or their project. So there are people here and other places I worked who do their job really, really well, and they should be like compensated and promoted and et cetera. But they're not necessarily going to be in leadership because they don't necessarily see like, how does my job fit into every other department? Because I think that's a lot of management, is knowing like, not only how do I do the best work, but how do I make this fit with the whole thing we're trying to produce together.
And that goes back to exactly what you were talking about earlier, or that we were talking about, the context of seeing the situation as a whole.
Yeah. And then some things it's just right for the job. Like we'll talk about why you were promoted, for example, which has been excellent. Even we've been in one meeting and somebody was like, I mean, who knew Green would be so great? And it was like, me, I knew.
Yeah.
I said we should promote him.
He seems like an idiot.
Yeah. No, that
What
was
a
not
pleasant
the context.
surprise.
No. But you have been like exceptionally great in the role you took on. And you were doing a really different role that wasn't a management role before.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think for you, like, I didn't know, I actually think you've been really great at seeing that broader picture of how things fit in. I didn't actually know that you were going to be that great at that. I didn't think you weren't, but I didn't work with you a lot on a day-to-day level.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know if you would or not. What I did know, I'd seen you in another role that was a service role. And so I'd seen you interacting with customers, with a bunch of emergencies, and handling it really well and kind of balancing and like being able to, in the moment, be like, okay, here's a priority. It has all just changed because some other emergency came up. And I'm still being nice and like putting people at ease. And that was something like we really wanted for this role. So, I mean, and I feel like, so I think it's seeing what's going on in other departments, seeing how the broader picture fits in, and being able to see the future of like where should Infomedia be going. Also, I think that service mindset does mean a lot to us, particularly at
Mm-hmm.
Infomedia. And one of the things that I think gets lost is also just somebody doing their job well on a day-to-day level. Because lots of people have ideas for the future, and they may even be good, but if I can't trust them to get their daily work done, then I really can't trust them to like add responsibilities and complexity.
That totally makes sense.
So, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for letting me co-host this. I feel like we've covered our question quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. I enjoyed it. I actually love being a guest, so thank you.
I love guest co-hosting or guest hosting.
Well, thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Carrie. One Quick Question is brought to you by Infomedia. Find show notes, including links to what we talk about on the podcast, at infomedia.com/quickquestion. Our producer is Elena Harmon. Our theme music is by Brad Davis. Our episodes are produced by Paul and Aaron at Infomedia Studios. If you need website support, marketing advice, or you're interested in building a new website, give us a quick call at 205-823-4440 or email quickquestion@infomedia.com.